It started slowly, so slowly that I almost missed it. The silence between us changed. At first, I chalked it up to stress or to the monotony that creeps into long-term relationships when life gets too predictable. But then I realized something that stung far deeper. She had stopped looking at me the way she used to. Her name is Emma. We've been together for 4 years. Lately, her laughter didn't echo through our apartment the way it used to. Her good-night kisses became afterthoughts. And when I'd ask her about her day, she'd reply with, "Fine," and nothing more. At some point, I stopped being curious. I didn't even notice the space growing between us until it felt like a canyon. Still, I did nothing. I worked from home, spending most days staring at the same walls, talking to no one, my only real interaction being her when she came home. But she came home later now, and she carried new silences with her, silences that belonged to someone else. I hated what I did next. Last Tuesday, she said she was going to meet an old co-worker for coffee after work. Something in her tone felt off. Too careful, too rehearsed. I waited 20 minutes after she left, grabbed an old pair of binoculars I hadn't used since a photography class years ago, and left our apartment. I followed her. God, I can't believe I followed her. There's a 3-story parking garage just across from the cafe she mentioned. I climbed up and crouched behind a concrete barrier, pretending I had any business being there. And then I saw her. Emma walked up to a man waiting at a table by the window. Tall, well-dressed, confident. His body language was open, and when he saw her, he lit up. She smiled back, really smiled. The kind of smile that folds into the corners of your eyes and makes you forget the world for a second. She laughed, threw her head back, and touched her chest the way she used to when I said something funny. I hadn't seen that laugh in months. They talked for over an hour. No touching, no obvious flirting, just conversation. But watching her be so alive, so herself, with someone else felt like being slowly unraveled. I walked home without feeling my feet. My thoughts kept circling around the same question. When did she stop sharing that version of herself with me? That night, when she came home, she looked tired. She offered me a soft hey and walked into the kitchen. I said nothing. The next day, I followed her again. Same cafe, same man, same laugh. This time, I stayed longer. I watched how she leaned in slightly when he spoke, how she held her coffee with both hands and smiled between sips. I watched the way he never once looked at his phone. It was painful to admit, but they looked connected, not romantically, maybe, but emotionally. He was getting a version of Emma I hadn't seen in so long. I wasn't even sure it still existed. And then something changed in me, somewhere between the guilt and the heartbreak. I realized I wasn't angry. I was sad. But more than that, I was glad she could still smile like that, even if it wasn't with me. Back home, I sat in our dim living room and replayed moments from the past year. How many times had she asked me if I wanted to go for a walk, and I said I was tired? How many dinners had we eaten in silence while I scrolled my phone or stared blankly at the TV? I'd become a ghost in my own life. Emma didn't change overnight. I just stopped showing up. She came home that evening and noticed something was different. I had lit candles, something we used to do all the time. I made her favorite pasta. I didn't say anything about the man or the cafe. I just asked her how her day was, and I listened, really listened, and for the first time in months, I saw a flicker, a hesitation in her eyes, like she was about to say something but didn't know if she should. She didn't. Not yet, but I could tell she wanted to. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept circling back to what I wanted to do. Not what I should do, but what I needed to. I remembered a conversation we had over a year ago when she saw an ad online for a luxury cruise. She had lit up with excitement, gushing about the idea of dancing under stars on a ship, sipping champagne at sunset, exploring new places together. I'd brushed it off at the time, told her maybe someday had become a foggy excuse. So I did it. I booked it. The best one I could find. 7 nights, top-tier suite, everything included. I even called her boss and arranged for her time off. The next evening, when she walked through the door, I was waiting. I didn't say anything right away. just stood there, hand behind my back. She blinked at me, confused. What's going on? I smiled, a real one. Something I hadn't done in too long. I have something for you. She raised an eyebrow. I pulled the tickets out from behind my back and held them up. She froze. For 5 full seconds. She said nothing. Then she read the tickets, and her mouth fell open. Is this real? I nodded. We leave tomorrow morning. Bags packed. 2 weeks off. Just us. Her hands trembled as she took the tickets. I could see tears forming at the corners of her eyes, but she smiled anyway, a small, overwhelmed smile. Why? She asked, voice cracking. Because I've been missing for too long, and you stayed, even when I stopped showing up. She threw her arms around me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just held each other. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. The next morning felt like waking up in someone else's life. Emma was quiet as we drove to the port, but not in that distant way I'd come to dread. She was thoughtful, maybe even unsure. Her fingers tapped the edge of her coffee cup in the car, and every few minutes she looked at me like she was still trying to process everything. We boarded the ship just after noon. It was massive, blinding white, with soft classical music playing as we crossed the gangway. The crew greeted us like royalty. I watched Emma's eyes widen as we walked into our suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a private balcony, and a bottle of champagne already chilling in a silver bucket. She turned to me, speechless. It's beautiful, she whispered. I shrugged, trying to downplay the nerves rattling in my chest. You said you always want to see the stars from the middle of the ocean. She walked slowly across the room and opened the balcony door. The wind caught her hair. She leaned against the railing and let out a breath I didn't know she'd been holding. For a while, we just stood there. Dinner that night was on the top deck. String lights flickered above us, and soft jazz played from somewhere nearby. Emma wore a simple navy dress, her hair pinned back. I couldn't stop looking at her. You've been quiet, I said as the waiter poured our wine. She smiled slightly. I'm just trying to understand how I went from fighting with a spreadsheet in my cubicle to standing here. I took a sip and nodded. You deserve this. You always have. She looked at me, her eyes scanning my face like she was searching for something. Why now? She asked. I paused. Because I was losing you. And I didn't want to admit it until I saw it with my own eyes. She looked down. Her fork danced across the edge of her plate. You followed me, didn't you? She said, not accusing, just stated like a fact. I nodded. Yeah, twice. I'm not proud of it. She didn't look angry, just sad. I never cheated, she said softly. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who reminded me I still existed. I know, I said. I saw it. And honestly, it made me realize how long it's been since I made you feel seen. She reached across the table and took my hand. You were always there, she said, just behind a wall. And I got tired of knocking. I squeezed her fingers gently. I built that wall. I didn't mean to, but I did. We didn't say much for the rest of the meal. We didn't have to. That night, back in our suite, we lay on the balcony beneath a sky full of stars. The ocean was calm, the ship slicing through the water in silence. I think I forgot who we were, I said. Emma turned her head toward me. Me too, but maybe we can remember. I reached for her hand again. The wind was cool, and for the first time in what felt like years, I felt like we were moving in the same direction. Together. The morning after our first night on the cruise broke with gentle roll. The ocean air carrying the salty scent of sea spray and the soft from the ship's engines through our open balcony door. The curtains swaying lazily in the early breeze that carried a hint of distant rain. The narrator, sat at the small suite table, the wood smooth and cool under my hands, its surface marked by faint water rings from the champagne glasses we'd left out, the empty bottle now tilted in its silver bucket, a quiet symbol of our tentative restart. The journal I brought lay open beside me, its blank page staring back like a challenge, while Emma's soft breathing from the bed, steady, unguarded, filled the room, a sound I'd almost forgotten. Her hand in mine from last night lingered in my memory, a spark of awakening flickering in my chest, mingling with a mix of hope trepidation, and a nagging fear that this might not be enough. The distant horizon stretched endlessly beyond the glass, a mirror to my thoughts, its blue expanse both inviting and intimidating, while the neon lights of the ship's deck cast a faint, artificial glow through the night that still clung to the edges of dawn. I sipped coffee, the bitter warmth of ritual that steadied my nerves, its steam curling upward like the questions I couldn't yet voice, and wrote, the pen scratched a hesitant, uneven rhythm against the paper, step by step, toward waves that might carry us back to each other if I could only find the courage to navigate them. That afternoon, we explored the upper deck, the air alive with the scent of sunscreen, the tang of salt water, and the lively chatter of passengers mingling with the occasional cry of a gull overhead, the wooden railings warm under my grip as we moved slowly, almost cautiously, through the crowd. Emma pointed out the endless water, her voice soft and tinged with wonder, her finger tracing the horizon as if she could draw us a new path, and we stood together, the ship's gentle sway a reminder of our shared space, its rhythm syncing with my heartbeat. I noticed her ease returning, her smile flickering back to life like a candle rekindled, and I felt a shift deep within, a loosening of the tightness I'd carried for months, the desk back home a distant memory of isolation, now replaced by this open sea. We laughed about a seagull that swooped down to snatch a passenger's sandwich, its boldness a mirror to my own tentative steps, and I jotted notes in the journal, her laugh, the gull squawk, the way the sun danced on the waves, step by step, toward an awakening of our connection that felt fragile yet possible. The next day, we joined a dance class on the main deck, the air buzzing with the rhythm of a waltz spilling from hidden speakers and the rustle of feet on polished wood. The instructor's voice a cheerful guide cutting to the hum of nervous laughter. Emma stumbled on her first step, her foot catching mine, and giggled, a sound so pure it caught me off guard. While I caught her, our hands linking naturally, her palm warm against mine, a touch that sent a jolt through me. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of the past dancing in them, a memory of late nights dancing in our kitchen before life grew heavy, and I held her gaze, feeling the desk's echo fade into background noise of the ship. We moved together, clumsy but earnest, her breath quickening with each turn, and I wrote in the journal later, the pen scratch a release, capturing the sway of her dress, the music's pulse, step by step, toward waves of rediscovery that might rebuild what we lost. That evening, we dined on the stars on the top deck, the air cool with the scent of the ocean mingling with the rich aroma of grilled fish, the soft hum of jazz drifting from a live band nearby, the wooden table a haven beneath the flickering string lights. We talked about the cruise, the silences that had grown between us, her co-worker at the cafe, her voice hesitant, breaking slightly as she admitted she needed someone to see her, the horizon a vast backdrop to our fragile words. I listened, really listened, hearing the tremor in her tone, the unspoken guilt, and nodded, letting her words settle without judgment, the desk a distant symbol of my past neglect. The waiter refilled our wine, the clink of glasses soft punctuation, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a witness to her vulnerability, step by step, toward an awakening that might bridge the canyon I'd helped create. The next morning, I jogged on the deck, the air crisp with the scent of dawn, the ship's pulse a steady rhythm under my feet, though it's smooth and slightly damp from overnight mist. I felt lighter, the weight of my guilt easing with each step, the desk back home a refuge in my mind now transformed into a place of strength rather than stagnation, the distant lights of the passing ship a beacon in the early haze. Emma joined me, her footsteps falling into sync with mine, her smile a quiet promise as she matched my pace, her breath visible in the cool air. We ran together, the ocean stretching out beside us, and I wrote in the journal later, the pen scratch of victory, filling it with dreams, us together anew, laughing under stars, rebuilding what time had worn thin. Step by step, the morning after our jog on the deck dawned with restless swell, the ocean air thick with the briny scent of the sea and the low hum of the ship's engines vibrating through our suite, the curtains fluttering with an uneven rhythm. I, the narrator, sat at the small table, the wood warm under my palms, the journal open beside me now marked with yesterday's hopes, the empty coffee cup a silent companion. Emma's quiet presence as she dressed carried new tension, her smile from the run replaced by a distant look, and I felt a current of confrontation stirring beneath our fragile peace. The horizon a jagged line against the sky, the neon lights of the ship's lounge a faint glow in the distance. I sipped water, the coolness a contrast to my racing thoughts, and wrote, the pen scratched a jagged pulse, step by step, toward currents I couldn't yet name. That afternoon, we attended a shipboard mixer, the air alive with the scent of cocktails and the buzz of strangers' voices, the wooden floor polished underfoot as we navigated the crowd. Emma chatted with a woman who introduced herself as Lila, a former classmate from high school, her laugh sharp and familiar. I watched as Lila's eyes lingered on Emma, then shifted to me with a knowing glance, and my stomach tightened. She pulled Emma aside, their whispers lost in the music, but I caught fragments, names, a year ago, a memory that made Emma's face pale. The desk back home flickered in my mind, a symbol of my past neglect, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratch a release, step by step, toward confrontation brewing. The next day, Lila sought me out on the deck, the air crisp with the scent of salt and the rhythmic crash of waves against the hull, the wooden railing cold under my grip. She was blunt, her voice low. I saw Emma with that guy, Mark, last year at a reunion. They were close, laughing like old times, even though you've been together 2 years. Her words hit like a wave, memories of Emma's recent silences flooding back, the desk a distant echo of trust eroded. She recounted a night of drinks, Mark's hand on Emma's arm, and I felt a chill, the neon lights a distant blur. I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a struggle, step by step, toward currents of doubt. That evening, I confronted Emma in our suite, the air heavy with the scent of her perfume and the soft of the ship, the wooden table a barrier between us. She admitted meeting Mark, her voice trembling. He's an old friend, nothing more. But Lila's story lingered, a year ago clashing with our timeline. I asked about the laughter, the connection, and she hesitated, tears brimming, the horizon outside a witness to our fracture. I listened, the desk a memory of my own failings, and wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a catharsis, step by step, toward a confrontation that might heal or break us. The next morning, I walked the deck alone, the air fresh with dawn, the ship's pulse a steady beat under my feet, the wood slick with mist. I processed Lila's words, Emma's confession, and felt a resolve forming, the desk a fortress in my mind, the neon glow a beacon. She joined me later, her hand tentative in mine, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratch a hope, step by step, toward currents that could carry us through this storm. The morning after our tense walk broke with a somber light, the ocean air thick with a salty tang of mist and the steady hum of the ship's engines seeping through our suite, the curtains swaying with a restless rhythm. I, the narrator, sat at the small table, the wood cool under my palms, the journal open beside me now scribbled with yesterday's doubts, the coffee cup trembling slightly in my hand. Emma's silence from last night lingered, her hand tentative in mine a fragile thread, and I felt a tide of truth rising within me, the horizon a blurred line against the gray sky, the neon lights of the ship's bar a faint, mocking glow in the distance. I sipped coffee, the bitter warmth a ritual that steadied my shaking thoughts, and wrote, the pen scratched a jagged beat, step by step, toward tides I needed to face. That afternoon, I saw them on the deck, the air alive with the scent of sunscreen and the rhythmic crash of waves against the hull, the wooden railing slick under my grip as I scanned the crowd. I found her near the pool, her eyes red-rimmed, and asked about Mark, his role, her feelings, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. She spoke softly, admitting a year of friendship that predated us, her laughter with him a comfort she'd missed, the desk back home a symbol of my absence. Lila passed by, her glance sharp, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratch a release, step by step, toward a truth that demanded honesty. The next day, I reflected in our suite, the air heavy with the scent of her lingering perfume and the soft hum of the air conditioning, the wooden chair creaking under me as I sat. I replayed her words, my failures, nights spent zoning out, days ignoring her light, and felt a pang of accountability. The desk a mirror to my neglect. Lila knocked, her voice firm. I didn't mean to stir trouble, but you deserve to know, and shared a memory of Mark flirting at the reunion, Emma hesitant but engaged. I wrote in the journal. The pen scratches struggle, step by step, toward tides of my own making. That evening, we sat on the balcony. The air cool with the scent of the sea and the distant hum of the ship's horn, the wooden railing a boundary between us. Emma opened up. Mark was a confidant, not a lover, but she'd hidden it out of guilt. Her tears a confession, the horizon a witness. I admitted my role, my wall building, and we held hands, the neon lights twinkling faintly, the journal a record of our raw exchange, step by step toward a truth that might mend us. The next morning, I jogged alone, the air fresh with dawn, the ship's pulse a steady rhythm under my feet, the wood damp with dew. I processed her words, my resolve, and felt a shift, the desk a fortress of growth, the neon glow a beacon. Emma joined me later, her smile tentative, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratch a hope, step by step, toward tides of truth leading to reconciliation. The morning after our raw confession on the balcony dawned with fragile clarity, the ocean air crisp with the scent of salt and the faint hum of the ship's engines pulsing through our suite, the curtains swaying gently in the dawn breeze. I, the narrator, sat at the small wooden table, its surface now etched with faint scratches from my restless pen, the journal open to a page filled with last night's tentative hopes. Emma's soft breathing from the bed was a quiet anchor, her silhouette framed by the pale light filtering through the glass, the horizon a steady line that seemed to hold both promise and uncertainty. I sipped coffee, its warmth grounding me against the tide of emotions, and wrote, the pen scratched a steady rhythm, step by step, toward ripples of trust we were only beginning to rebuild. That afternoon, we joined a shipboard cooking class. The air thick with the aroma of fresh herbs and sizzling olive oil, the wooden counter smooth under our hands as we chopped vegetables side by side. Emma's laugh broke through when I fumbled with a knife, her elbow nudging mine playfully, a fleeting return to the ease we'd once shared. The instructor, a jovial chef named Marco, teased us about our uneven carrots, and for a moment, the weight of Mark, Lila, and the desk back home faded into the clatter of pots and the warmth of shared effort. I caught Emma's eye, her smile soft but genuine, and wrote in the journal later, the pen scratched a quiet victory, capturing the scent of rosemary, her fleeting touch, step by step, toward a trust that felt like a delicate seedling. That evening, we strolled the deck under a sky bruised with twilight, the air cool with the scent of the sea and the distant hum of laughter from the ship's lounge, the wooden railings cool under my palm. Emma spoke of her work, her voice hesitant at first, then flowing. Stories of late nights, small triumphs, frustrations I'd ignored for too long. I listened, asking questions, feeling the desk's echo as a reminder to stay present, and shared a memory of my own, a client's praise that felt hollow without her tell. Her hand brushed mine, not quite holding but close, and I wrote in a journal, the pen scratched a hope, step by step, toward ripples that might carry us closer. The next morning, I woke to find Emma on the balcony, her silhouette framed against a sunrise that painted the horizon in gold, the ocean air alive with the scent of dawn. She turned, her eyes catching mine, and said, I want to try again. Really try. Her voice was steady, a vowel that hung between us, and I nodded, the desk a distant symbol now of growth rather than neglect. We spent the day exploring the ship's library, the air quiet with the scent of old books, the wooden shelves a haven where we read passages aloud, laughing at cheesy romance lines, our shoulders touching. I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a promise, step by step, toward a trust that felt possible under the vast sky. The morning after our day in the library broke with a restless swell, the ocean air heavy with the threat of rain, and the ship's engines a low, uneasy hum through our suite, the curtains twitching in a fitful breeze. I sat at the table, the wood cool under my palms, the journal open to yesterday's fragile vows, but a shadow lingered. Lila's words about Mark a year ago still gnawed at me. Emma's laughter from the bed, as she scrolled her phone, felt distant, and I wonder if I'd imagined the closeness of last night. The horizon a jagged line against a gray sky, the neon lights of the ship's bar a faint, taunting glow. I sipped coffee, its bitterness mirroring my thoughts, and wrote, the pen scratched a jagged pulse, step by step, towards shadows I couldn't shake. That afternoon, We attended a trivia game in the ship's lounge, the air alive with the scent of spilled beer and the buzz of competing teams, the wooden table sticky under my fingers as we scribbled answers. Emma's enthusiasm flared, her hand grazing mine as we debated a question. But I caught her glancing at her phone, a flicker of something guilt, distraction crossing her face. Lila appeared, joining another team, her eyes meeting mine with a knowing smirk, and the memory of her story about Mark surged back. The desk a symbol of trust now tested. I wrote in the journal later. The pen scratched a struggle, capturing the hum of the crowd, her fleeting glance, step by step, toward doubts that threatened our fragile peace. That evening, I found Emma on the deck, the air cool with the scent of rain, and the rhythmic crash of waves against the hull, the wooden railing slick under my grip. I asked about the phone, my voice calm but probing, and she sighed, admitting she'd texted Mark. Not to reconnect, but to set boundaries, to end their talks for good. Her eyes searched mine, pleading for belief, but Lila's voice echoed, and I hesitated. The desk a reminder of my own failures mingling with this new uncertainty. We stood in silence, the neon lights twinkling faintly, and I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a confession, step by step, toward shadows that demanded truth. The next morning, I jogged alone, the air fresh with dawn, the ship's pulse a steady rhythm under my feet, the wood damp with dew. I replayed Emma's words, her plea, and felt a tug of guilt for doubting her, the desk a fortress of my own accountability. She joined me later, her smile tentative, and offered her phone, open to the text, a clean break with Mark, no replies. I shook my head, refusing to check, choosing trust over proof, and wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a resolve, step by step, toward a light that might pierce the shadows. The morning after our quiet resolution dawned with serene calm, the ocean air light with the scent of salt and the softness of the ship's engines fading into the background, the curtains swaying gently in a warm breeze. I sat at the table, the wood warm under my palms, the journal open to yesterday's choice to trust, a weight lifted from my chest. Emma woke slowly, her eyes meeting mine with a softness I hadn't seen in months, the horizon a smooth line against the sky streaked with pink, the neon lights of the ship's deck now a distant memory of tension. I sipped coffee, its warmth a quiet celebration, and wrote, the pen scratched a steady beat, step by step, toward tides of renewal. That afternoon, we joined a shore excursion at a small port, the air alive with the scent of tropical flowers and the chatter of vendors, the wooden dock creaking under our feet as we wandered hand in hand. Emma's laugh rang out as she haggled for a woven bracelet, her ease a balm to my heart, and we shared a coconut, its sweet water dripping down our chins, the desk back home a faint echo of a life we were rebuilding. We sat on a beach, the sand warm beneath us, and talked of dreams, hers for a new job, mine for writing again, the horizon a canvas for our future. I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a joy, capturing the sun's warmth, her radiant smile, step by step, toward renewal that felt like home. That evening, we danced on the ship's deck, the air cool with the scent of the sea and the rhythm of a slow song spilling from hidden speakers, the wooden floor polished under our feet. Emma's hand rested on my shoulder, her breath warm against my cheek, and I held her close, feeling the desk's weight dissolve into the music's pulse. She whispered, I'm here, really here, and I nodded, the neon lights twinkling like stars above, our shared rhythm of vow. I wrote in the journal, the pen scratched a love letter, step by step, toward tides that carried us together. The next morning, as the cruise neared its end, I woke to find Emma beside me, her hand in mine, the ocean air soft with the scent of dawn, the ship's gentle sway a lullaby. We stood on the balcony, watching the horizon draw closer, a new city waiting, and I felt a certainty. The desk would be there, but so would we, stronger, awake. I wrote in the journal one final time, the pen scratched a triumph, filling it with dreams, us, hand in hand, laughing under stars, navigating whatever tides lay ahead, step by step, toward forever marked by love.